Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. We are about to start. If you want to leave in the chat where you're from and from where you're watching us, we're happy to have you all here. And also, please feel free to answer the poll that should appear on your screen so we get to know you better. And we know if you're already an existing Real Estate IQ subscriber and if you would like to have a one-on-one consultation of our services. So feel also free to use the chat box and the Q&A box to ask all the questions that you may have so Arnie is able to answer them. And we are moving forward with him. Thank you, Arnie, for joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. Thank you, Alan, for sharing. So we have people from Toronto, Canada. We are super glad to have you here. At the end of the presentation, we will do a demonstration of our tools, and I hope that you
Okay, you cut it
off. Arnie, do you want to start with your presentation?
Okay, shall we begin?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for attending. And this is the second that I've done with Real Estate IQ. The first, we kind of introduced what tax sales were in Texas. And now we're going to talk about what the steps are in order to go to the tax sales auction, excuse me. So here we go. First, I want to do a quick review and overview for those of you that may not have been here, or that just to refresh things a little bit. Remember that in Texas, there are tax deeds sold, not tax liens. And it's very easy to buy them at a discount. We've been doing this for years and years, and we always buy the properties at a discount of their retail value. In Texas, unlike some of the states, you get immediate possession of the property when you buy it at the tax sale. And there's an auction every month in Texas, always on the first Tuesday of the month, unless the first Tuesday happens to be a national holiday, like the 4th of July or New Year's Day, and then it's not. Then it'll be the next day on a Wednesday. The redemption fees in Texas are the highest of all the states. That means that if you buy the property at the tax sale, the owner has a period of time where they can buy it back if they wish, but they have to pay you what you paid for it, plus 25% for every year you've owned it. And it's only good for 2 years, in some cases only 6 months. But those are great redemption fees, the highest in the country. And when you buy it at the tax sale, it wipes out the liens that are not governmental liens, like IRS liens or some of those. But all the rest are wiped out. And the real estate fundamentals in Texas are so good right now. There are people moving here in droves. And there's a huge demand for housing and a low supply. And that existed even before the pandemic, and even now, before this, whatever we're in, inflation or whatever we may want to call it. Now, there's an influx of people moving here. There's a big demand for housing, and there's a shortage of housing. People are moving out of the big cities. More land is needed. Texas has plenty of land, and it has the best tax deed structure. So Texas is the right place, this is the right time, and tax sales are the right arena to do it. So that's our intro sort of overview. So let's get started. What are the steps involved? Step by step. It's a culling process. We start with 1,000 to maybe 2,000 properties every month. And the first thing you have to do is not go looking through 1,000 or 2,000 of them to find out what you like. Start eliminating right from the beginning. And I'll give you some examples. Now, the first step can be very steep. So there's a hard way to do it. You can do it all yourself. You can go look through all 70 counties that are having a sale like last month and and go through all of them. But the easier way is just let us help you and show you how. So step number one is to find out which counties are having a sale at the next auction. Texas has 254 counties. In a given month, we'll have between 40 and 70 or even 80 counties having a sale. Not every county is going to have one every sale, but the counties with the 5 big cities, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Fort Worth, they're going to have them every month. Some of the other counties will have them every 3 months, some every 6 months, some once a year. Now, the exception is coming up in a week or two, because the first Tuesday in January of next year is the day after New Year's Day. So as a result, I haven't seen anything like this in years. There are only about 12 counties having a sale on January 2nd. Now that's very unusual. Usually it's a lot more. So this is a good time to kind of take a look at it because it's not as cumbersome to do so. So we want to how do you find out which counties are having a sale the next month? Well, daily, we check out the appraisal districts. You can go there, all the appraisal districts, and say, are you having a sale? Well, that's the long way, of course. You can call the county tax offices, of course. You can go to the law firms. There are 3 big law firms that handle maybe 90% of the tax sales. You can do any one or all 3 of these. And there are listing services you can go to. So it's your choice. Or you can get them from us, from our website at no cost. Not only do we have it with no cost on our website, but we also will tell you the city, the location, what time the auction is, and how many properties they have for sale. Let me give you an example. And by the way, we update it every day. Here's an example. In this example, Anderson County, the sale will be at the county seat, which is Palestine, at 11 o'clock, and there are 29 properties for sale. Now, that's not current. That's not this month. This is just for your illustration. And so far, in this illustration, on whatever month that was, Andrews County was not having a sale, but Angelina was, and that's in Lufkin. And that sale was online. And so that meant the time was between 10 and 3, and they only had 8 properties for sale. So this is much easier for you to go to our website and scroll down. We've got all 254 counties listed there. And even more, because in Harris County, which is Houston, of course, they have 8 different precincts, and each precinct has their own sale all at the same time. So there are like 8 different auctions going on at the same time in Harris County. So there's more than 254 because we're listing all 8 of those precincts, and a couple of other counties have different precinct auctions too. So there's between 250 and 270 on our list. So that's step number 1. Then once you've looked at which counties have sales that you may be interested in and may be closer to you, whatever it is that your criteria is, then you have to go to that website and select which properties you're interested in. And there are a lot of choices. It depends on where you're coming from, what your objectives are. For example, you could be looking for vacant lots or acreage or houses or not houses, maybe commercial or resales or trustee sales or minerals or mobile homes. You might want to look in the cities, or you might be in the rural. So there are all sorts of different things. So you need to know up front what you're looking for. And then you can proceed, because in every one of the counties, you'll find choices like that to make. Then once you've decided, okay, I want to look at houses or whatever it is, you have to do the research, the properties that you find are of interest to you. Now, you can go to the appraisal district to find out, but what we do is we put out some information like this, like number 3 here. This gives the cause number. What that is, that's the case number. That's the important number, because the address may differ from the address they call out at the auction. It can be very confusing. And also, some companies use the CAD, stands for County Appraisal District. The CAD number is not always used the same way by every county. Some of them will put the geographic number instead of the CAD number. And so you get all confused. So the cause number is the one to always use as your benchmark to make sure you're on the right property. And this number 3, for example, 4840 Eastover Avenue in Fort Worth, and the CAD number, etc. The published minimum bid, usually that's pretty much going to be how much they owe in taxes, plus any extra expenses that the county has put on there to bring the sale up. And the adjudged value means that's what the taxable value was when that suit was filed, when that lawsuit was filed. But today, it's not 45,000, it's up to 109. So my guess is that that was probably several years ago. But this is just the basic information that you can kind of trim down the number of properties you're looking at. For example, number 2, why am I going to look at one that the minimum bid, they owe in taxes the same amount as what it's valued at? That's probably not a very good one to look at. So you can eliminate that unless you're looking for something like that. So this is just the basic information you want to look at to eliminate and leave the ones that you want to go pursue. And then, if you wish, you can start doing more information gathering. For example, you got the cause number. This is not going to coincide. This is just an example. And what date was it? The judgment date was through 2011. That means that minimum bid is only through 2011. This is almost 2024. That means that whatever that minimum bid was, then some counties will say, okay, you have to pay that, whatever you buy it for, that's only going to take care of the back taxes through year 2011, and you're going to have to pay, in addition to what you bought it for, all the taxes that have accrued since then till today, and that can be horrendous. Now, not all counties do it that way. Some of the counties will mark it up, and they'll tell you, or if you have to ask them, oh, that the minimum bid includes through this last year. So it could go either way. There's no rhyme or reason because every county does things differently. But that will give you some of the additional information. And then what type of property is it? Residential? Is it a warehouse? What's the deal? Configuration: 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 1 car garage. 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2 car garage. If you bought it today, that's what your current taxes would be, without any exemptions, of course. And this one tells you it's 1/4 of an acre. That's 1/2 an acre. That's 1 acre. That's 2 acres. So this is all the information that we put together that is available for the people we're working with, or you can get it on your own. So that's step number 3. What we've done is we found the county, at least one, you can do several, but this is at least one county, and you've picked out the properties that you're interested in. So what do you do next? Well, now you want to go visit the property. It is essential that somebody goes and take current pictures and report of any property being considered. Now, either you go yourself or have somebody else go and take pictures for you and report on the property. Let me tell you why. I used to go to a lot of the tax sales in Dallas County years ago, and people would come up to me afterwards and they would say, you know, last month I bought a property and I went out to look at the house and there was no house on it. And I bought it at the tax sale. And I said, well, didn't you go look at the property before this? Oh, no, I went to Google and I saw what the pictures were. I said, that picture was 6 years old. So it's so important that you have somebody find out for you, take pictures, or go yourself to find out what it looks like today. Doesn't do you any good to know what it looked like 6 years ago. So that's an important message. Let's see what it looks like today and why you're there. Is it occupied? Is it vacant? Is it in repair? How does the roof look? Is it level? You know, you can take notes of all these things. That's important. Now, then you got to run the calculations. And it's all about the numbers, not the fuzzy feelings you have about a property. Oh, I love it. It's all that. It's all numbers. That's what you have to look at first. Now, what numbers are we talking about? Well, what's the objective? Are you buying the property to buy and hold? Or do you want to buy it and rent it out? And if that's the case, you need to find out what the rents are in the neighborhood, for example. And also, it might be that you're looking to own or finance it, or you're just looking at the cash on cash return that you can get for it, or maybe you want to do a cash out refi, or maybe you want to wait until the redemption period is over and then sell it. So what you need to do is set your maximum allowable bid. We call that MAB, maximum allowable bid, the most you would pay for this property. At some point, whatever your objectives are, you have to look at that house with those objectives and do enough research to be able to make a decision. Now, then you set your maximum bid and don't go over it. Okay? Now, then you get ready to bid, you got your maximum bid set up, but some things you need to verify, because all you've got so far is what I've shown you, but there's some things you have to find out about. For example, you might find that the house you've been looking at this whole time of the property has been pulled from the sale. That means they paid it off. So you need to continue to check that. Once you find out a property you're looking at, continue to check it every day or every week or very often, because you don't want to put a lot of time and effort into doing one that's already been pulled from the sale. Now, sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes they'll remove it 5 minutes before the auction. So that's what we like to do, is get 2 or 3 properties, just in case one of them gets pulled, then you got another one to fall back on. But not everybody wants to do that, but after a while, you'll get the hang of it, and you'll see that that's always a good thing to do, just as a backup. And then some counties require certification. What is certification? Well, they will give you a certificate, and you have to go to the appraisal district before the sale, and they will check you out to make sure that you don't owe taxes in that county before they will give you a certificate. Because they don't want, if you owe taxes, back taxes, they don't want to have you add to that. Now, that's something somewhat recent. The last few years they started this, and it's mandatory in counties that have at least 250,000 or more people in it. It is mandatory. You need to understand, though, that some counties will say, you can wait and do it right before the sale. You can go to the appraisal district and then come to the auction and do it. Others will say, no, you got to do it ahead of time. Some will say you got to do it 5 days ahead of time. Some will say 10 days ahead of time. So you need to check all that out early to see what their rules are. And the smaller counties, some of them have adopted it, even though it's not mandatory in those smaller counties. But some of them have said, oh, we're going to do it too. Hunt County, for example, I live in Hunt County. They don't have 250,000 people, but they require that you have a certificate in order to bid. Several of the counties are starting to do that more and more. And then the other thing you need to check, any liens that are still go with the property that you buy. Remember, it wipes out the non-government liens, but you have to check and see if there are any government liens on there. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's an IRS lien. Well, yes, that's a good example of a government lien. But don't forget the local liens. Maybe that house was vacant for several years, and the county or the school district or one of the taxing entities had to have people go out and cut the grass and keep it up and that kind of stuff. Well, they put liens on for that. So those liens could be on there. Those are liens that do not go away. That's government lien. It's a local government, but that's still a government lien. So The only reason you need to know is because whatever you buy it for at the auction, in addition to that, you're going to have to pay any liens that are still on the property. Now, if it's land you're looking for, you need to check it to make sure it's not landlocked. You know, I mean, what if you bought some property, you can't get to it? Now, sure, there's a lot of people tell you, oh, there's no such thing in Texas and all that, but I'm not a lawyer, but landlocked property will present problems. You want to see if there are utility connections, because if not, and you're trying to develop it, or you want to build on it, or there's a house on it and you don't have a connection or a place for it, that's going to cost you some more money too. And the price is through what date? Remember, we talked about that earlier. If it was through 2017 and they didn't update it, you might owe, you know, another $20,000 in taxes that haven't been included in the sale. So these are all things that you need to be aware of. And here's something that people don't see all the time, but you have to, it's best to look at the lawsuit. It'll say Harris County versus so-and-so, the owner of the property. But if it says Harris County versus, does that mean it doesn't include the school districts? Now, we assume that if it says Harris County et al., ETAL, Latin for and others, then you assume that that would include the other taxing entities. And people tell you that. I'm a little wary of that, because literally speaking, and I've seen this only once and it was maybe accidental, but I've concluded et al. Does mean and others. It may or may not mean and all others. So it's always best to check. And then the time and location of the sale. The location is usually going to be at the courthouse of the county seat. Sometimes it's not. Several counties I've been to in the past, they were renovating the courthouse and they moved it somewhere else. And some of the auctions start at 10 o'clock, some at 11, some at 1 in the afternoon, some at 2. So you need to check. This last month, we had people going to a lot of different counties, and it was our fault. We sent them to a county where the auction said 1 o'clock. And it said 1 o'clock when you look at the property at the law firm. But at the beginning of that website, up at the top, it said 10 o'clock. So it's really crazy. In one county, it says 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and you don't know which way to go. And what we should have done was called and see but we kind of overlooked it. And so we went there for nothing, and that happens. And authorization. If you are bidding for someone else, number one, you cannot bid for another individual, but you can bid for another company, or if you're authorized to bid for some organization, but you better have a written authorization that's notarized to take with you, because if you get challenged, they either won't let you bid, or if or they may say you're not, it's not valid, and they may take it away from you and sell it to somebody else. And then there are the exemptions, like a homestead exemption. What a homestead exemption is, it means that you pay a little less in taxes because you've declared this to be your homestead and you've jumped through the hoops necessary to get that exemption. Now, what that means is that if you buy that property and you're not living in it, you are not going to get that exemption. So your taxes will be different from what is posted there. And there are other exemptions also that you need to worry about. So it's always best to check the exemptions. And then, is there a homeowners association? Because that's going to add to, especially if you're going to rent it out, or if you're looking for cash flow or something, that's going to be another cost. And my personal opinion is, I don't like homeowner associations for my cash flowing properties, because that means they can eat into my cash flow without my consent. Because if the homeowner association has a vote and I've only got one vote and the other 240 people who have their votes, they go along with it and vote to raise their dues, that cuts into my cash flow. So I kind of am wary of those. And then when you're going to that auction, if it's a few miles away, you better check the weather and the traffic, because they usually most of them start around 10 o'clock. And that means that if you're starting early, you're going to hit the great traffic around the Metroplex and the other big areas. So put that into your calculations. Now, after you've made those investigations and you have to adjust what you're going to bid because of those things we just figured out, you need to do that now before you start to do any kind of really serious deciding on what you're going to bid. You have to make those adjustments. Then you have to, having done that, you have to prepare for the auction, because remember, every county is different. I can say that 1,000,000 times and it's still different. You have to do a final check for, did my property I want to bid on, did it get withdrawn from the sale? If that's the only one I'm bidding on, if that's withdrawn, why am I going to go? I mean, you might want to go just to learn about it and get some experience, but if it's 150 miles away, you may not want to just for that. And I suggest you have your bid list that you're going to bid on a clipboard. Don't just have it on a card, because there's several things. First of all, clipboard makes it easy to write down, and you might want to write down what properties are selling for and other information they call out, and they give you like where to go to make payment and things like that. And it's best on a clipboard. And on the clipboard, you can have those authorizations I mentioned that authorizes you to bid. And if they give you a certificate and you need that, you're going to have to show it before they'll give you a number in which to bid if it's required in that auction. So you have all these things instead of looking in your pocket and in your coat, where did I put it? Put everything on a clipboard. And then make sure that that auction is where you think it is and what time it is. Just double check. And if you have to call the appraisal district to ask them the day before, or call the law firm or whomever it is, but just always check. Don't go by just what's printed, because sometimes they change them and don't change it online. And also in your preparation, you need to find out the payment rules. In other words, once you win the bid, most counties in Texas will give you time to go to the bank and get a cashier's check for the amount that you need, and then take it back somewhere to make the payment. Now that's much better than walking around with 150,000 or more in cash. So a cashier's check is better, and it's better for you. But every county has a little different twist on this. In some counties, Harris County, I believe, last time I checked, they don't let you go to the bank. You got to have it right then and there. But most of the counties will say, well, we'll give you 2 hours to go to the bank, or we'll give you an hour, or we'll give you 4 hours. They're all different, and you need to know ahead of time, because then if you're doing it that way, you need to find out where the closest branch to the bank you're using is, and how far away is it from where the auction is. So that's something you got to figure in there. Isn't this all real simple? And it's just so much fun checking all this stuff. So you got those payment rules, and also do they require a cashier's check only, or will they say they'll take money orders, or will they? Some of them will take a personal check. One county used to say, well, we'll take a debit or a credit card, and then in parentheses they whispered, we're going to charge you 3% for that. Well, if you bought a house for $200,000, that's only what, $6,000 or something. I don't know. So you got to be careful. Now, get there early. Got to get there early, because there are things they will announce, and there are things they hand out, like the order of sale and stuff like that. And sometimes they don't print enough because a lot more people show up. So get there early. And also, you want to find out all you can when you get there, and you don't want to get at the last minute and find out, oh my God, I got to go get a number before they bid, and they've already started, and you're going to miss some. So try to always get there an hour early. That leaves you, I know that's tough, but that gives you a big window of room for error. And then allow for the delays because look, this is Texas. They're working on roads everywhere. So if you think it's going to take you an hour and a half, make sure you leave it 2.5 hours ahead because there are delays. And actually, last month we bought a property at a small county sale. They only had one property for sale, and our person won the bid because we were the only one there. Because the other people that we sometimes bid against, the other company, they had somebody coming and they were going to bid way more than we were, it turned out. But they got stuck in traffic and didn't get there in time. We bought a property where our maximum bid on it was $100,000. It was worth twice that. And that was our maximum bid. And we got it for $53,000 because that's what they owed. That was the opening bid, and there was no one else there. So that was a significant savings. And had they been there, I talked to them later when they came running in, we'd already bought it. And they said, "What'd you buy it for?" And I said, $53,000. Oh my God, we were going to bid up to 100 and something. So, but all these things are little things that happen that can help you. Then number 9, attending the auction. All that's ready. You must attend the auction in order to bid unless the sale is online. Some of the big big counties have gone online. Dallas County is online. But Tarrant County in Fort Worth is not. And so some are, some are not. And more are starting to go online. You may not be allowed to bid for another person. Remember, I mentioned that. But you can bid with proper authorization for a company. And the authorization rules will vary among the counties. So always check beforehand. And then most counties are going to have you register when you get there. Almost all of them require it before the auction. And that's when they give you a number after you tell them what they need to know, your phone number and your name. If you're bidding for somebody or a company, they don't care at this point. They want your name and your cell phone number, because if you win the bid or you go to the bank and there's a change, they want to be able to call you and say, "Hey, don't come back here. We're leaving. We're going to the appraisal district," or something like that. Now, also, they want to know how the deed is to be made out if you win the bid. Well, if you're bidding for yourself, it could be in your name. It could be in an LLC that you have, or whatever it is. You need to tell them on there, because that's how they're going to make out the deed, how you fill it out if you win the bid. And most counties will give you a bidder number. So you don't have to raise your hand and they say, "Who are you?" You know, number 1. Oh, you're bidding against number 4, 1, 4, and you know, back and forth. Once, not too long ago, I had 3 different investors that we were bidding for, and they went with me to the sale. And so I had 3 numbers I was holding up, and depending on what the price was, I'd hold up this one or I'd hold up that one. And everybody there started laughing, and it was kind of fun. We all had a good time with it. But by the way, we won a house on all 3 of them. Now, the certification that I mentioned before. Some counties require certification in order to bid. They will certify you once they ascertain that you do not, that whoever you're bidding for does not owe any late taxes in that county. It's mandatory, as I said, in counties that have 250,000 people, smaller counties that more and more are starting to adopt it. Some require it only if you win the bid. Some of them will say, "You don't need to do this unless you win the bid." And then you go to the appraisal district and you give them the information they need. But others may require before, as I said, some 5 days, some 10 days before the auction. So you can't just rely on all of them doing it one way. Now, you win the bid. Wow, it took us long enough to get there, didn't it? All right, you won the bid. Now what? Every county has their own rules about payments. Remember, auction payments. Some require payment immediately when the bid is won. Most of them will allow you time to go to the bank and get the funds. Almost all will accept cash, money order, and cashier checks, and all require payment the same day. A few will allow other forms of payment, as I mentioned. And then 100% of the time, before you go to the bank, before you leave the auction, before 100% of the time, always, never forget it. Did you get the point? Here's what you got to find out. How's the cashier check to be made out? How'd you like to go to all this trouble, go to the bank 30 minutes away? You get there and say, okay, I need a cashier's check. I just bought a property. They say, how do you want to make it out? Oh my God, I don't know. Some counties can say, make it out to yourself and then endorse it. Others are going to say, make it out to the appraisal district. Some are going to say, make it out to the law firm. Some will say, make it out to the county. Some to the sheriff, some to the constable. So you got to find out before you leave that auction how to make it out. And then what? Well, where do I go to pay it? If you go back to where the auction was, the auction's over. They're gone. Where are you going to take it? Well, how much time do they allow you for payment also? So these are the three questions that you have to find out before you leave that auction site and go to the bank to get the money. How do I make out the check? Where do I go to pay it? And how much time do you allow me? 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours? You got to find out. So keep that in mind. I hope you're writing this down. And by the way, don't ever leave once you've made payment without getting a receipt. You want a receipt for when you give them the money. 100% of the time, find out before you go to the bank. Now, after you win the bid, you've made the payment. Now, the transition, you're now the owner or whomever you bid for. You want to insure the property. We suggest you immediately call your insurer and say, I just bought this property. I want coverage now. And you might want to consider liability insurance, even if it's a vacant lot. Somebody could break a foot there or something and break a leg and sue you. They may want to know the square footage of a house. They may ask you about the condition of the roof. And it's okay to call them before as soon as you do that and say, all right, I'm going to go out and check it and take a picture right now, but cover me. I want to be covered now. And then we suggest you arrange inspection by a licensed inspector for a lot of reasons. Not only does that give you pictures and other information, what is needed for rehab, so you can get quotes, but also gives you pictures and details and other proofs of the work needed to comply with codes. So you can bring it up to code, which is justification to include the cost. Let's say somebody wants to buy it, right? They want to redeem the property. And the redemption, remember, they have to pay you what you paid plus 25%. Well, if you've made improvements that are necessary as identified by a licensed inspector to bring it up to code, you can add that to your cost, and they have to pay you that plus 25% also. And that would include, are you ready for this? Any insurance premiums you paid while you owned it before they redeemed it, you can get that money back plus 25% as well. So these are all good things to know. Now, once you get there, and if there are people there, you've got to evaluate the occupancy. Is the property occupied or is it vacant? If it's vacant, okay, you better make arrangements to have somebody come in and give you some estimates. You might want to change the locks. What's the condition of the property? Might want to take pictures. What's the status of the occupants? Are they renters? Were they the owners? What would they like to stay? You need to find out. And what's their goal? Do they want to stay? Do they want to buy it back? Do they want to redeem it? Do you want to work with them? Do they rent? Or will they take a higher rent? If you make some improvements, all kinds of questions you need to decide and see the situation is calling for. Let them talk, because you'll learn a lot. You say, oh, how long have you been in the house? And, just keep asking questions like that. Oh, well, have you done a lot of work to it? Is there anything that we need to know about? Are you renting? Let them talk. They will tell you a lot, and take notes. That's the other reason you have a clipboard. Now, determine your game plan. Once you get the property, you get all this information. Do I want to hold this long-term versus short-term? Whatever my goal was, do I want to keep it or do I want to alter it? Because it's different. Different factors. Do I rehab or not? If so, what's the extent of rehab I want to do? Is it just to get it habitable, or do I want to really put money into it? Do I want to rent it? Do I just want to hold it and then try to flip it or something? Do I want to own or finance? Do I need some sort of interim plan? But I need to bring it up to code. You have to go through all this and decide once you can examine the property on the inside. Now, this is our company, and you're invited to order any of our services. Everything I've shown you, we can do for you, or we can just do the parts that you don't want to do. It's up to you. Or you can become a priority member that we have. And there are a lot of things about that. Number one, we have a learn and earn program where we can teach you, and you even earn money while you're learning. And we have free classes, discounts on our services, if you remember, big time discounts. And we have something we put out every month called the cream of the crop. Those are the ones that we have gone through, the properties, and we recommend these to our members. You take a look at it. We do a lot of the research for you to save you the time. And if you refer people in and things, we reward you for it. We sometimes run across deals that we can buy before the auction. And we have a little program for that. And we always, always offer that to our members. And you get one-on-one with us. We have several people that we can work with you one-on-one. And we now have something I don't know anybody else has. We're going to introduce it next week, well after the first of the year, where we have financing for our members only. It's very difficult to get financing for tax sale properties. And we're even, in some cases, going to be able to let you loan you money to bid. I've never even heard of anybody doing that. It's going to be really exciting. And we have some special programs that no one else has. We even do some of the trustee sales, the mortgage foreclosures. If we're already there at the auction, most of the after the tax sales, usually if they've got mortgage foreclosures called trustee sales, they're right after, and we do some of those as well. And that's going to increase dramatically because look at the interest rates now, and the people in the bank and the people who are losing their homes because it's happening. So we're expanding that. And we even have management opportunities if you really want to get involved with this. So anyway, I do have some more. There are two ways to become a priority member. We have a one-time enrollment fee. It's $49.97, and that's one-time lifetime. That's it. We're adding more values, and so it will go up in 2024, but since you're on today, you're locked in at this price for at least 30 days. And what about the elephant in the room? What if you don't want to put that much money without knowing whether you really like it or not? And those are what we call the potential elephant concerns. All up front, what if I find out it isn't for me? And I don't blame you. That's a good question. $5,000 may be a lot of money. So we have something else. We call it our provisional program. Here's how it works. You're instructed in our learning program along with our party members and participate in the services we market. But your earnings, instead of in cash, apply to that membership. And you can do it at your own pace in your spare time. And that training fee is only $700. And that also applies to the membership. So you can, and if you find, oh, I do like doing this and I'm learning a lot and I want to become a priority member, you can wait until you've earned enough to do it, or you can pay the difference anytime you want. And both of these are going to go up next year. So you're invited, and I'd love to have any questions. I kept going on and on. We have about 15 minutes or more, but I'm ready for questions. Anybody there? Hello? Okay. We may have some sort of difficulty. If you can hear me, though, and you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. It's 214-869-7188. Or if you want to email me, it's Arnie, ARNIE, at txtaxsales.com. txtaxsales.com. And I'll stay on until I hear from somebody, or Valentina, somebody. Okay. There. What about tax and mortgage overages? Any opportunity in Texas? Overages. I'm not sure what you're really asking about. Could you be more specific, Richard? What are you asking, really? Here's a question. What's the difference between a tax lien and tax lien and tax sale? Well, in Texas, I'm going to type it, I guess. Texas has tax deeds, not tax liens for sale. Like the difference between a bond and a stock. One is debt, and the other is equity. Salim said, I sent you a, okay. Oh, I can answer it. Okay. Salim, you would like to answer this question live. Okay. I sent you a couple of questions. Let's see. All right, here's my all right, here's a question about, the question is the redemption period in Texas. The redemption period is 180 days, that's 6 months, unless it has a homestead exemption or agricultural exemption, or if it's a mineral that's been severed from the rest of the property. In that case, it's a 2-year redemption period. Good question. Let's see. What's the difference between tax lien and tax deed sale? Okay. Like I said, the tax lien is like buying a bond, and tax deed is like buying a stock. Tax lien is what, in Texas, the tax lien is where the bidding starts. That's how much they owe. And that's not for sale. In Texas, you don't buy the lien. In Texas, you buy the deed. You buy the property itself. In tax lien states, you're buying that deed, the lien that they owe in taxes, and they pay you the interest rate. And if they default, then you have to go and foreclose. So Texas, we like a lot better. And overages of the tax or foreclosure sales over bid amount that the prior owner is technically owed. Okay, yes, that is. So I understand what the overages is. You mean, can you get it? No, they're entitled to it. And there are some, quote, gurus out there, would-be gurus, who tell you, hey, you can go and you can call them up and you can say, hey, you know what? You're entitled to all this overage, and that's what was paid for the property over and above what was owed. Let's say they had a lien for $20,000, you bought it for $100,000. There's $80,000 in overages, and they're entitled to that. And you might call them, and these gurus are going to tell you, you can call them and say, hey, I'll split it with you and show you how to do it. Well, guess what? The law in Texas is very clear on that. Number one, you can't charge more than 25%. Number two, it can't exceed $1,000. And number three, you must be a lawyer. So you might get away with it, but it's not allowed in Texas. We think that you should let them know about it, though. Now, can you explain more about the verification regarding the price through what date? You have to pay $20,000. Let's say sometimes verification rate. Oh, yeah. What I meant about that is, let's say that the minimum bid is through 2018. Now, once that comes out, that's how much they owe in taxes, let's say $20,000. That was through 2018. It's now, let's say, through 20 and 23. That's 5 more years. So there's 5 years of taxes that have to be paid in addition to what you pay for at the auction. That's what I meant by that. That's the, so you need to verify that minimum bid goes through what year. If it only goes through 2018, there are 5 more years of taxes that I've got to pay. But some of the counties will say, no, we marked it up through 2022. You only owe 1 year because it's not late now until January 31st, next month. So I hope that's clear. It's a little muddy, but that's the answer. What interest rates? I mean, what are you asking? There's no interest rate involved here because that's only with tax deeds, tax liens, and we don't buy tax liens in Texas. So you buy the property. Now let's see what else. How difficult are trustee sales? Well, how difficult are trustee sales? Don't quote me on this, but there are a lot of rules and regulations for the tax sales. The trustee sales is the wild, wild west. Anything goes. You got a bunch of mortgage companies trying to outdo each other and trying to, in some cases, trying to make it difficult to buy because they want to keep it. It's got a lot of equity in it. And the way it's done is, you know, they'll say, we'll be there sometime between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, or between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And sometimes they don't show up. The trustee is the guy who's representing the mortgage company. Sometimes they don't show up. Sometimes, if not on purpose, a trustee may be given 4 different auctions to go to, and he the first one takes a longer time, and so he doesn't get to the last one or something like that. It's And with the trustee sales, you have to have the money right then, right there. You can't go to the bank. So it's different. And we have training on that as well. But that's just some of the highlights, if you want to call them that. If someone redeems the property in 1 month or 5 months to pay same at redemption, great question. Yeah. In tax lien states, you get an interest rate, right? But this is not an interest rate. The redemption here, it's a penalty fee, that 25%. That's not an interest rate. So if you buy it on Tuesday at the auction and they redeem it 2 days later, they still have to pay you the full 25% plus what you paid. And even if it's a year from now, and if there's still a redemption period in effect, if it's within the year, it's 25%. If it goes over to the next year, it's 50%. But it's always going to be of what you paid plus any of those things that you could add to it that I mentioned about, to maintain, preserve, and safekeep the property. That's the guideline. If you want to do some work on the house, you don't want to upgrade it because you wouldn't get that money back if they redeem it. But if you can prove that it's to maintain, preserve, and safekeep the property, then that is added to it. And I quoted that from the tax code. Now, what does that mean? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say you go in and there's a hole in the roof. Well, you repair it because that's certainly to maintain, preserve, and safekeep the property. So that cost of repairing that hole would be acceptable. You could add that to what they have to pay you plus 25%. But if you go in and your wife says, well, I don't like that countertop, let's make it granite. That's not to maintain, preserve, and safekeep. That's an upgrade. That would not qualify. Now, these are my opinions. I'm not a lawyer, but that's the way I understand this. In Texas, can you only redeem within 6 months? No, it's 6 months unless it is a homestead exemption, an agricultural exemption, or it's a mineral right that you have bought. In those cases, it's 2 years. So otherwise, it's always going to be 6 months unless it's one of those exemptions, and then it's 2 years. Let's see, what else? Oh, any other questions? Keep them coming. I love it. I'm sorry it took me so long to discover the Q&A part here, and if I skipped anybody, just jump in again. I hope that you're getting the questions. I get the feeling you are getting the answers because I'm getting the questions that do that. So anything else? Let's see. Are we out of time? Almost. Anyway, once again, I love questions, so don't be afraid to ask them, and you can call me or you can email me, whatever you like. I'm here to help you. And we'd love to have you join us, but even if you don't, it's okay. We still want you to know what you're doing in this. So we're happy to help you. Okay, anything else? Juliana, can you explain more about the verification regarding the price through what date? You have to pay $20,000. Oh, that was you. Juliana's coming on board in our provisional program, and I told her to sit in through this, and so that's why I said, "Oh, it's you." So I hope we answered it. Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you so much. I enjoyed talking about this, as I do all the time, and feel free to contact me if you have more questions.
Thank you, Arnie, for this amazing webinar. It was great to hear your expertise, and thank you everyone for attending today. We expect to see you in future webinars.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. If you don't mind, everyone, I will share a poll with you to know if you would like to have a demo request. So someone from our sales team is able to contact you.
1 second. They wanted me to put the contract
Oh, yes,
information.
of course.
Let's see. Where is it? I thought I got in there. Okay. Well, it's not taking it. Let's. All right, here, I'll put it there. Well, oh, I see. 1 second. I'll try to figure this out. There you go. All right, here we go. There you go. Well, thank you so much for having me, and we can do it again sometime if you wish, or we have other classes as well.
Of course. Thank you, Arnie. I don't see your contact information though. I don't know where have you answered it.
I'll put it right there. Let's see, I'll put send. How's that? Did that help? All right. Let me just give it to you again then. It's 214-869-7188. And it's Arnie, ARNIE, at, or you could just put info, INFO, at txtaxsales.com, txtaxsales.com.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnie, and thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a wonderful day and Merry Christmas and New Year.
Yes, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you.
Happy holidays. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.